Behind the leather jackets and roaring motorcycles of this cult action flop lies a treasure trove of bizarre production secrets, from wrong birth dates on tribute patches to paper-mâché Concordes that never flew, prophecies of die-hard sequels decades before they existed, and a motorcycle built from a cocktail napkin sketch that became more famous than the movie itself. Here are 15 weird facts you didn't know about Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man. 1991. Fact 1. Mickey Rourke bought an Elvis mansion he couldn't afford. Mickey Rourke has never been shy about admitting that starring in Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man was one of the worst decisions of his career, and the story behind why he took the role is even more bizarre than the movie itself. In a candid conversation with fellow actor Alec Baldwin years later, Rourke revealed that he accepted the part purely for the money, later confessing that he felt like a whore taking the $4 million paycheck. But what makes this story truly strange is what he did with that money, buying a massive Elvis Presley house that was completely beyond his means and left him financially stretched. Rourke admitted that he couldn't actually afford the property, but the lure of owning a piece of rock and roll history apparently clouded his judgment during a turbulent period in his life. The experience of making the film turned out to be just as regrettable as the financial decision, with Rourke later stating that he hated himself every single day during production. He felt like a complete sellout, appearing in what he knew was a mindless action movie just to fund an extravagant lifestyle he couldn't sustain. This self-loathing became so intense that it contributed to one of Hollywood's most dramatic career derailments, as Rourke walked away from acting in the mid-1990s to pursue professional boxing instead. The physical toll of boxing would famously damage his face and require multiple reconstructive surgeries, but Rourke has said that even that painful chapter felt more authentic than the compromises he made during films like Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man. Fact 2. Don Johnson insulted his own movie during promotion. It's one thing for critics to trash a movie, but it's something else entirely when one of the lead actors does it himself while the film is still in theaters. Don Johnson, fresh off his success as Sonny Crockett on Miami Vice, was supposed to be promoting Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man when he made one of the most brutally honest statements ever heard from a movie star during a press junket. Johnson actually told audiences, quote, "If you don't have a single brain cell, this movie is for you," end quote. This wasn't some offhand joke taken out of context either, but rather a genuine assessment that Johnson gave during official promotional appearances for the film. Imagine being the studio executives who spent $23 million on the production end, hearing your leading man basically tell potential ticket buyers that the movie was made for people with no brain cells whatsoever. Johnson clearly knew the film was a disaster even before it hit theaters, and his unprecedented honesty turned out to be entirely justified when the box office numbers started coming in. The movie earned only $7.4 million domestically, which meant it lost roughly $15.5 million when you factor in the production budget alone, not even counting marketing and distribution costs. This made Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man one of the bigger financial bombs of 1991 and effectively stalled both Johnson's and Mickey Rourke's film careers for years afterward. Johnson's willingness to trash his own movie while it was still playing in theaters remains one of the strangest promotional disasters in Hollywood history, proving that sometimes brutal honesty isn't always the best policy when you're trying to sell tickets. Fact 3. The Stevie Ray Vaughn tribute has the wrong birth year. Mickey Rourke's character, Harley Davidson, wears an incredibly detailed leather jacket throughout the film, covered in patches that each tell a story, but one of the most prominent patches contains a major factual error that nobody caught during production. The left sleeve of the jacket features a memorial tribute to blues guitar legend Stevie Ray Vaughn, who had tragically died in a helicopter crash just months before filming began in August of 1990. The patch displays the initials SRVV above Roman numerals that read MCMLVI-XC, which translates to 1956 through 1990, representing what the filmmakers believed were Vaughn's birth and death years. The problem is that Stevie Ray Vaughn was actually born on October 3, 1954, not 1956, meaning the tribute patch honors the legendary guitarist with the wrong birth year displayed prominently on screen throughout the entire movie. This error is particularly strange because Vaughn's death had been major news in the music world just a year before production started, and his biographical details were widely available and well documented. The patch was clearly meant as a sincere tribute from Rourke, who was known to be a fan of blues music, but somehow the costume department got the birth year wrong by 2 full years when they created the jacket. Eagle-eyed viewers and Stevie Ray Vaughan fans have pointed out this mistake over the years, noting that the incorrect Roman numerals are visible in multiple close-up shots throughout the film, forever immortalizing the error in what was meant to be a respectful memorial to one of the greatest guitarists in rock and blues history. Fact 4. The film accidentally predicted Die Hard. 5. Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man is set in the near future of 1996, which was only 5 years ahead of the film's actual 1990. One release date, and the filmmakers decided to include various futuristic touches to sell this setting to audiences. One of these background details appears in a wide shot of Burbank, California, where a large billboard can be spotted advertising a movie called Die Hard 5: Die Hardest, suggesting that by 1996, the Die Hard franchise would already be on its 5th installment. At the time, this was purely meant as a throwaway joke, poking fun at Hollywood's tendency to make endless sequels and playing on the idea that action franchises would just keep going forever with increasingly absurd titles. The original Die Hard had only come out in 1988, and Die Hard 2 had just been released the year before in 1990, so imagining a 5th film seemed ridiculous enough to be funny background decoration. But here's where things get weird, because over 2 decades later, in February of 2013, a 5th Die Hard movie actually was released in theaters under the title A Good Day to Die Hard. While the actual title wasn't Die Hardest as the billboard predicted, the fact that there genuinely ended up being a Die Hard 5 at all turns this random joke into an eerily accurate prophecy about the future of action movie franchises. The filmmakers couldn't have known that the Die Hard series would continue for another 2 decades, making their satirical billboard less of a joke and more of an accidental prediction about Hollywood's insatiable appetite for sequels. Fact 5. Don Johnson accidentally knocked out his co-star with a pool ball. One of the most memorable scenes in the movie takes place in a strip club where Don Johnson's character Marlboro Man is hustling pool and dispensing wisdom from his old man about the 5 rules of playing pool for cash. But what was supposed to be a carefully choreographed bar fight turned into a genuine medical emergency when Johnson accidentally knocked his co-star completely unconscious. Actor Branscombe Richmond, who played a character called Big Indian in the film, was supposed to get into a confrontation with Marlboro during the pool hustling scene that would escalate into a brawl. The fight choreography called for Johnson to throw a billiard ball at Richmond in what should have been a controlled stunt, but something went wrong during filming and the pool ball struck Richmond with full force, knocking him out cold for real. This wasn't a case of Richmond acting like he was knocked out or selling the hit for the camera, but rather an actual unscripted knockout that required the production to stop while Richmond received medical attention on set. Richmond, who had appeared in numerous action films and television shows throughout his career, was a professional stunt performer who knew how to take hits safely, which makes it even more surprising that the accident happened during what should have been a routine stunt sequence. The fact that a pool ball traveling at high speed caught him perfectly enough to render him unconscious speaks to just how dangerous even seemingly simple action sequences can be when something goes wrong. And it's a reminder that the physical comedy and bar brawl scenes that look so effortless on screen can sometimes result in very real injuries behind the scenes. Fact 6. The Concorde jet was actually made of paper-mâché aviation. Enthusiasts and plane spotters who watched Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man were quick to notice something very wrong with one of the aircraft that appears in the background during scenes set at the airport. Specifically, an Air France Concorde supersonic jet that can be seen in several shots. The problem is that Concordes never actually flew to Burbank Airport in real life, which immediately raised questions about why the filmmakers would include such an obviously incorrect detail in a movie that was supposed to be set only 5 years in the future. But the story gets even stranger when you learn that the Concorde wasn't even a real airplane at all, but rather a completely fake prop constructed from paper-mâché to give the airport scenes a more futuristic and international feel. The fake Concorde was apparently detailed enough to look convincing from a distance on camera, but aviation experts also pointed out that the engine sound effects used in the film don't match the distinctive roar of the 4 Olympus 593 engines that powered the actual supersonic aircraft. This attention to detail from plane enthusiasts reveals just how much effort went into creating a fake Concorde that was fundamentally wrong on multiple levels, from its impossible presence at Burbank Airport to its incorrect sound design. The paper-mâché Concorde joins a long list of aviation inaccuracies in the film, which also features scenes shot at the Davis-Monthan Air Force Base airplane boneyard in Tucson, Arizona, where dozens of decommissioned military aircraft provided a genuinely apocalyptic backdrop that didn't require any fake props to look impressive on screen. Fact 7. Vanessa Williams was a dethroned Miss America. Vanessa Williams appears in Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man playing Lulu Daniels, the wife of Big John Studd's character Jack Daniels, and she also performs as a singer in the bar. But her casting carries significant backstory that makes her presence in this R-rated action film particularly notable. Just 7 years before this movie was released, Williams had made history by becoming the first African-American woman ever crowned Miss America in 1984, a groundbreaking achievement that should have launched her into mainstream success. However, her reign as Miss America came to an abrupt and scandalous end when Penthouse magazine published unauthorized nude photographs of Williams that had been taken before she entered the pageant, creating a media firestorm that forced her to resign the crown under intense pressure from pageant officials. Many people at the time predicted that Williams's career in entertainment was completely over after the scandal, assuming that she would never recover from the public humiliation and controversy surrounding her resignation. But Williams proved everyone wrong by rebuilding her career through music and acting, signing a recording contract and releasing several successful albums throughout the late 1980s. Her role in Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man represented a deliberate pivot away from her squeaky clean beauty queen image as she appeared in a gritty action film filled with violence, profanity, and adult content that was about as far from the Miss America stage as she could possibly get. The film allowed Williams to show audiences that she had moved beyond the scandal and was willing to take on edgier roles. Fact 8. Big John Studd's final film role before his death. Professional wrestler Big John Studd, whose real name was John William Minton, played the character Jack Daniels in Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man, and this role would prove to be his final appearance in a major motion picture before his untimely death just 4 years later in 1995. Studd had been a major star in the World Wrestling Federation throughout the 1980s, standing an intimidating 6 feet 10 inches tall and weighing well over 300 pounds, which made him one of the most physically imposing figures in professional wrestling during that era. His transition to acting allowed him to bring that same larger-than-life presence to the screen, and his character Jack Daniels served as one of Harley and Marlboro's loyal friends who helps them with their scheme to save the bar. What made Studd's casting particularly interesting was his on-screen marriage to Vanessa Williams' character Lulu Daniels, creating one of the most visually mismatched couples in Hollywood history, given the extreme difference in their physical sizes and public personas. The film treated their relationship as completely normal and loving, with Studd's character shown as genuinely protective and devoted to his wife, which subverted audience expectations about what an action movie couple should look like. Studd's performance demonstrated that he had real screen presence beyond just his physical stature, showing a softer side that wrestling fans rarely got to see during his years in the ring. Tragically, Studd died from liver cancer and Hodgkin's disease on March 20, 1995, at only 46 years old. Fact 9. Bruce Willis almost reunited with Don Johnson. Before Mickey Rourke was cast as the leather jacket-wearing biker Harley Davidson, the producers had their sights set on a completely different action star who would have given the film an entirely different dynamic. Bruce Willis was seriously considered for the lead role of Harley Davidson, and the studio was particularly interested in him because of his close personal friendship with Don Johnson, which they hoped would translate into genuine chemistry on screen. Willis had just come off the massive success of Die Hard in 1988 and Die Hard 2 in 1990, making him one of the hottest action stars in Hollywood at the time, while Johnson was still riding high on his Miami Vice fame and trying to establish himself as a movie star. The two actors were known to be good friends in real life, and the producers felt that casting them together could create a buddy dynamic similar to what audiences loved in films like Lethal Weapon, where real friendship between the leads elevated the material. However, Willis ultimately passed on the role, and the reasons for his decision have never been fully explained, though it's possible he recognized that the script wasn't strong enough to warrant his involvement or that he simply had other projects lined up. With Willis out of the picture, Mickey Rourke stepped in to play Harley Davidson, bringing a completely different energy to the role with his brooding intensity and genuine motorcycle culture credentials. It's fascinating to imagine how different the film would have been with Willis in the lead, as his wisecracking personality and action hero persona would have created a much lighter tone. Fact 10. The iconic bar was just a hollow movie set. The Rock and Roll Bar and Grill is one of the most memorable locations in the movie, with its distinctive crashed airplane sticking out of the roof, creating an instantly recognizable landmark that serves as the gang's home base throughout the film. However, fans who tried to visit this iconic location after seeing the movie were disappointed to discover that the bar never actually existed as a real establishment, because the entire exterior was nothing more than a temporary movie set constructed specifically for filming. According to eyewitnesses who lived in the area during production, the fake bar was built on a vacant lot in downtown Los Angeles, about 2 blocks west of Central Avenue on the south side of 3rd Street, where there had previously been nothing but an empty parking lot. The construction crew erected the building facade over the course of several days, and locals watched with curiosity as the elaborate set took shape, not knowing what movie it was being built for until someone on the crew mentioned the title. The most impressive part of the set was the crashed airplane protruding from the roof, which looked convincingly real on camera, but was actually constructed from wood and styrofoam and hoisted into place using a small crane. The entire structure was essentially hollow, with no real interior to speak of, and the set only stood for a few days before being completely demolished after they finished filming the dramatic scene where Harley and Marlboro leaped through the back windows to escape the villains. Within a year or two of filming, a Buddhist temple was constructed on that same vacant lot, permanently erasing any trace of the fictional bar. Fact 11. Butterfly knife scenes were censored in Britain. British audiences who saw Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man in theaters or rented it on VHS actually watched a slightly different version of the film than what American audiences experienced, thanks to the strict weapons policies enforced by the British Board of Film Classification. The BBFC, which is responsible for rating and sometimes censoring films released in the United Kingdom, determined that certain shots featuring a butterfly knife needed to be removed before the film could receive a 15 rating, which was necessary for the movie to reach its intended audience. Butterfly knives, also known as balisong knives, were considered particularly dangerous weapons under British law, and the BBFC had a long-standing policy of removing or reducing footage that depicted these specific knives in action, even in fictional contexts. The censors ended up cutting exactly 2 seconds of footage showing the butterfly knife being displayed or used during one of the film's many fight scenes, which may not sound like much, but was enough to alter the flow of that particular sequence. This censored version became the standard cut that British viewers saw both in cinemas when the film was initially released in 1991 and later when it came out on VHS for the home video market. The cuts remained in place for over a decade, with British fans having no way to see the complete uncut version of the film that audiences in other countries had access to. However, when MGM prepared a DVD release in 2003, the BBFC finally waived these cuts and allowed the full, unedited version to be released, meaning British viewers could finally see those 2 seconds of butterfly knife footage. Fact 12. The Black Death 3 motorcycle was designed on a cocktail napkin. The motorcycle that Mickey Rourke rides throughout Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man has become so iconic that many motorcycle enthusiasts consider it the second most famous movie. Bike in cinema history, right behind the Captain America chopper from Easy Rider. But the origin story of this legendary machine is surprisingly casual and spontaneous. Rourke had a very specific vision for what his character's motorcycle should look like. And rather than sitting down with designers to create formal blueprints or technical drawings, he simply grabbed a cocktail napkin while sitting at a bar and sketched out his dream bike in rough pencil strokes. He then took this napkin drawing to 3 master builders at Bartell's Harley Davidson in Los Angeles, specifically Gene Thomason, Dave Fournier, and Alan Barcy, who were known for their custom motorcycle work and had the skills to transform Rourke's rough concept into a real functioning machine. These builders took the crude sketch and interpreted Rourke's vision, creating what became known as Black Death 3, a heavily customized 1989 Harley Davidson FX RS with a 42-degree rake, 11.5-inch struts, a chromed swing arm, and distinctive hand-lettered playing cards featuring aces and eights painted on the gas tank. The bike went through extensive modifications to achieve its raw, stripped-down appearance, and the finished product so perfectly captured the dangerous outlaw aesthetic that the filmmakers were going for that it essentially became a co-star in the movie. 2 versions were actually built for production, with one being Rourke's personal bike and the other serving as a stunt bike for more dangerous riding sequences. Fact 13. Chuck Zito borrowed the original bike. For over 30 years after filming Wrapped on Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man, Mickey Rourke held onto his personal Black Death 3 motorcycle, but the bike's journey didn't end there, as it became part of one of Hollywood's longest-running borrowed item situations involving Rourke's friend Chuck Zito. Zito, who would later become famous for playing Frankie Diamonds on the hit television series Sons of Anarchy, was a close personal friend of Rourke's and had connections to the motorcycle world through his membership in the Hells Angels. At some point after the movie was released, Rourke lent the original Black Death 3 to Zito, presumably for what both men assumed would be a temporary arrangement, but that temporary loan turned into a permanent situation that lasted for decades. In his 2002 autobiography, titled Street Justice, Zito openly admitted that he had borrowed the motorcycle years earlier and still had it in his possession at the time the book was published, essentially confessing to keeping his friend's famous movie bike without returning it. Zito even mentioned that the carburetor on the bike bore an inscription that read, quote, "This is the original Black Death motorcycle used in the movie Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man," end quote, which authenticated it as the genuine article rather than one of the many replica bikes that were later built by fans. Zito reportedly crashed the Black Death 3 at some point during his extended borrowing period, and it was never fully restored to its original movie condition. The bike became closely associated with Zito over the years as he rode it across America and displayed it at various motorcycle events. Fact 14. Real radio DJ plays himself with made-up future news. The opening scenes of Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man feature radio broadcasts that help establish the film's near-future setting of 1996, with a DJ delivering ominous updates about the deteriorating state of the world, including concerns about the damaged ozone layer and amazement that humanity hasn't destroyed itself in a nuclear war yet. What makes these radio segments particularly interesting is that they feature a real Los Angeles radio personality named Sean Hollywood Hamilton, who was an actual DJ at KIUIS-FM at the time and appears in the film, playing himself rather than a fictional character. The filmmakers came up with the idea to include Hamilton in the movie after listening to his actual radio show during the production process, deciding that his distinctive voice and delivery style would be perfect for creating the dystopian atmosphere they wanted to establish at the beginning of the film. Rather than hiring a voice actor to play a fictional DJ, they reached out to Hamilton directly and brought him in to record custom dialogue specifically written for the movie's futuristic setting, blending his real-world radio personality with the film's fictional 1996 timeline. Hamilton's segments serve as world-building exposition that helps audiences understand they're watching a slightly darker and more dangerous version of the mid-1990s, where corporate greed has run rampant and society is teetering on the edge of collapse. The decision to use a genuine Los Angeles radio personality added an extra layer of authenticity to the film's setting, even though the content of his broadcasts was entirely fictional and designed to paint a bleaker picture of the near future. Fact 15. Disappearing spit and other bizarre continuity errors. Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man is filled with continuity mistakes that eagle-eyed viewers have spotted over the years, with one of the most memorable and disgusting errors occurring during a confrontation between Don Johnson's character and the main villain Alexander, played by Daniel Baldwin. In this scene, Marlboro Man spits directly into Alexander's face as an act of defiance, and the saliva clearly hits its target and is visible on Baldwin's face in the first shot. But when the camera angle changes just seconds later, the spit has completely vanished without anyone wiping it off, creating an impossible situation where the insult simply disappears between cuts. This wasn't the only continuity problem that plagued the production, as Mickey Rourke's iconic leather jacket features a patch on the front lower right side that mysteriously appears and disappears throughout various scenes, being clearly visible when he's standing outside the bar with Marlboro, but then completely missing when they move inside moments later. Perhaps the most noticeable error involves Harley's hairstyle, which changes dramatically between the climactic gunfight in the airplane graveyard and the final confrontation in the villain's office, with Rourke's hair being noticeably longer in the office scenes despite these events supposedly happening within hours of each other. Film critics and fans have also pointed out numerous other mistakes, including road signs that appear in the wrong geographical order when Harley rides from Texas to California, and a radio tracking device that somehow maintains a signal across distances that would have been impossible with the technology shown in the film. These continuity errors suggest that scenes were filmed out of order, over an extended period,